You're listening to a Count Out Podcast.
What it is, what's up, and welcome everyone to Faces and Feels. I'm your host, Rafe Houston, and today I am joined by a very special guest. Now, since the first moment I saw this man and since the first moment I got involved with Bleeding Gums Wrestling, he stood out to me as one of the real up-and-coming talents over there in Europe, and I'm just so pumped to be back on my grind, back up simply so early in the morning to speak to none other than the King Freak himself. It is Alton Thorne. How are you today, man?
I'm brilliant, mate. I wish all my interviews started with heavy riffing and some shredding guitars, you know, but...
Is that not how they all start? Like, I thought that was...
They usually start with a guy looking into the camera going, right, I've got Alton Thorne, let's go. So quite happy with that as an introduction.
Look, I got to set the scene, man. I'm a host here, you know what I mean? I got to paint the picture, make you feel good about yourself, make the people watching, or well, not watching. I don't put out camera. I got a face for radio, but they do want to listen and feel like they're part of it. So, dude, I want to thank you for setting aside time for you. I know it's like a Saturday evening for you, not an easy night to give up. So I really do appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to get to know you today.
Not a problem, mate. As I mentioned when you first approached me, I was more than happy to do it because I really enjoy your commentary on Bleeding Gums. I think you and Andy have a good chemistry and add a lot to those shows. And from a wrestler's perspective, that's always very much appreciated, you know.
Oh, thank you so much.
More than happy to be on, mate. Thank you.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, it's been really fun. I'm really fortunate to be able to do that with Andy. He's a good bud of mine. I think the world of Bleeding Gums and what you guys are doing, and I'm really enjoying doing it. I'm still relatively new to commentary. I've only been in the game for about, just over a year. So the fact that you guys enjoy it means a lot to me, and I'm going to continue to work hard to do a good job at it. So before we won't put the cart before the horse and get to where we're at now with Bleeding Gums, let's rewind all the way back, buddy. So when you think about professional wrestling, when you think about some of like the pro wrestling faces that stood out to you when you were younger, or even just when pro wrestling first came into your orbit, who do you think of? Who were some of like your fan favorites that drew you in?
The very first one that I think of is The Undertaker. Is the first one that, as a kid who was already kind of into horror films and, already dip into the more macabre kind of stuff, like The Undertaker, had that kind of aura and the darkness and the kind of satanistic aspect. And I was a fucked up little kid, so that appealed to me very much.
Hell yeah.
I was sneaking Evil Dead VHSs up to my bedroom to watch them at that age. So,
yeah, right. I was slot straight in.
Exactly. So Undertaker was the first one I remember really catching my interest, and I was buying a lot of VHS tapes of Undertaker and but in terms of when I decided that I probably wanted to be a wrestler, it would have been Mick Foley and then Terry Funk following that, because I would have been in 1997. That would have been I would have been 11, so the peak of my childhood memories, and that's when Foley and Funk were both in WWE, tearing things up.
You and I were getting into it around the same time then. I was about 96, 97 that I was getting into it. I graduated high school in 99. Year 12 was 1999, and then university 2000. So I was definitely getting into it around the same time. And I also remember all that stuff, like one of my favorite matches that I'm actually going to be reviewing on another podcast that I do called the Itchy Bun Sweetcast. We're going to be reviewing soon the New Age Outlaws versus Chainsaw Charlie and Cactus Jack, that dumpster
Brilliant
match. Yeah, that's like, I remember it so highly. What it is it's been years since I've watched it, but I'm actually super fucking pumped to watch it.
The thing is, you'll enjoy it as much as you remember, I think, because I've gone back and watched that match, and the way the New Age Outlaws kind of oversell for them in the kind of half comical, half like Attitude Era kind of style.
Yeah.
And you can never beat Foley and Funk just beating the piss out of two people. They do it so well. So it's a great match. I think you'll very much enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Back and watching it.
I'm pumped to get into it. Not walking right past the Undertaker just yet. When he first did sort of catch your eye, do you remember what he was doing? Like, I remember when the first real pay-per-view that like I rented on VHS and really locked into was WrestleMania 9, outside in the Coliseum type thing. Everyone's wearing togas and stuff. And the Undertaker comes to the ring like on a chariot with like a huge vulture or something on there. And I was like, this guy is cool as fuck. Like I thought that was some of the coolest shit I'd ever seen. What was he doing when you were first like, who's this fucking dude?
So it's a weird one, but like the first thing that comes to mind, like trying to remember as far back as I can, that really, really stood out to me was a casket match that I had with Kamala.
Yeah.
That I had on VHS, and Kamala's selling of him with like the giant scared face and terrified of the casket and the boggling eyes and like absolutely shitting himself.
Yeah.
Completely won me over.
Yeah, and it's huge Paul Bearer era too, right? Like, yes, like fucking all that shit, right? Yeah.
So that's probably the first I remember. But the VHSs were kind of like all of the period where he was fighting all the big shit wrestlers around him. Like they just put him in there with Mabel, and then they put him in there with Giant Gonzalez, and you could tell that he was getting pretty frustrated with it. But as a kid, I really loved those matches. You know?
Absolutely. The same. It's like, it's really funny, that like lens, right? Like, especially today, because everybody, wants, fucking being grown men that have grown up on it and like indie-rific shit, everybody wants these huge workhorse matches and shit like that. But when I was a kid, my favorite dude was Diesel. I fucking love the fucking Undertaker put down the Giant Gonzalez. You don't know. And those big spectacle matches kind of get lost a little bit, I think, these days.
100%. I remember there was one time in what we would have called the school playground or the yard, and we were picking the wrestlers who we wanted to be. And I had a WWF annual from that year, and I said I want to be Tatanka because I remembered that he did that hulking up spot where you couldn't hurt him. Yeah. And I thought that was a great spot as a kid, where I was like, "You could keep slapping me; it's not going to do anything."
How can you beat that? I used to love playing him on like the video game. I think it was like Royal Rumble on Nintendo or something like that, and you could beat him. I was like, this guy looks badass. Actually, speaking of WrestleMania 9, his match with Shawn Michaels that opens that show is actually super underrated, I reckon. That's like
one of the best matches on that show.
It's a killer match. It's so good.
Really, really good. I totally agree. That's a kind of... It's not the best show in the world. There are matches that I like because I've seen the show so many times as a kid. Yeah. But that I kind of like, even though I know they're not great. But I think that's one of the best matches on the show. Yeah. Great WrestleMania opener. Yeah, like you say, very underrated. I agree.
Absolutely. Now, that show just particularly holds a bit of a soft spot, for me, and it's like outdoors and, it's so campy and stuff, but it's really fun. What did you think? I mean, when we're talking about Cactus Jack and, Mick Foley and The Undertaker and stuff, I think the first time I saw Mick Foley was the Boiler Room Brawl, and that was fucking crazy to see as a kid. Was that, and then, that obviously leads all the way on to Hell in a Cell and coming off the fucking top of it. Were those some of the matches like Mankind that caught your interest and then got you to like Cactus Jack and Terry Funk, as you learned about Mick Foley, like started through that WWF lens and kind of learned about everything else he did,
The first thing I remember wasn't a match at all. Well, no, that's not true. I remember, immediately I loved his matches, but the first thing that essentially turned me into a super fan to the point where I would try and emulate parts of his work and, try and build a career doing things that he would have done, which I guess is what's happened, was the sit-down interview with Jim Ross.
Yes.
Because I'd never seen a wrestler like kind of pour his soul out in that way on TV. Like, promos had always been to as many people as possible. Right?
Brother,
like, Hogan, exactly, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to contact everybody in the crowd. Now, Mick Foley's not doing that.
No.
He's talking to you about his inner pain and his turmoil.
Yeah.
And he's drawing people in rather than like spreading.
Yeah, he's speaking
out.
Quieter, if anything. It's like that Jake the Snake Roberts thing, right? Then he's whispering and kind of mumbling shit, and you're like, yeah, absolutely.
But I think but he was also saying things that I could almost relate to a little bit. Like, it's talking about, not being picked first in school teams, and he felt slightly left out. And I was never particularly athletic, but I was really good at martial arts.
Okay.
So, like, I was at school terrible. Like, over here, football's massive, right? But I couldn't play for shit.
Yeah.
So I'd always be stood there till last waiting. And I didn't necessarily feel like an outcast because I was good at other things and I wasn't unpopular. But it was enough to, when Mick Foley's saying things that you could kind of see a little bit of yourself in as a kid, it really draws you in, right? And even though he was still a heel in those 3 interviews, like, for me, that was immediately, he's my favorite wrestler.
You feel sympathy for him. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you're like, I don't necessarily agree with the way he's going about this, but I do. You start to understand him, and that's like it was something that as a kid you're like, this is the first time I've ever seen this. Was how I sort of felt about it too. Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. Now
and also on those videos, that's the first time that I saw footage of like barbed wire, and because they showed some of the footage from Japan. Right?
They did.
So that was also the first time that I saw like explosives and weapons that you would just not have seen on TV over here. And again, that was like a mind-blowing experience for me as a kid. It was like, are they in barbed wire?
Yeah,
like,
I remember being sort of scared of it a bit, you know what I mean? Like, worried about it because, and I remember, I don't know where it was, I remember like seeing wrestling magazines, or maybe it was even in like, the WWF magazine and stuff. They did an article on it and something. They had like little stills of like him bleeding in Japan and stuff. And I was like, what the hell? Yeah. And I remember thinking it was gross and brutal. Ironically, I would go on to see fucking death matches in Japan and fucking commentate in a deathmatch promotion and almost exclusively interview deathmatch wrestlers. But as the time, as a young kid who was fucking just getting into this thing on my own, in country Australia, I was like, whoa, this is extreme stuff. This guy's like dangerous.
100% same. It felt, but also that was quite empowering for me because my dad was a boxer, a professional boxer, mixed martial artist, had like 7 different belts, I think like 4 black belts. And he never really liked professional wrestling because when he was watching it, he would say that he could like spot the cracks in it basically.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of the professional wrestling moves you couldn't use in a real life scenario, and that to him is a block. It's a mental block. It's like, well, I can't buy into this then.
Yeah.
If you did that to him, he would just do this. Right? That's kind of my dad's mentality.
Yeah, sure.
So Foley doing things that seemed so dangerous and off kilter and so different was almost like a get out of jail free card. It was like, no, Dad. I mean, you're right about them. The moves might not work in this context, but look at this man. He's being chucked off Hell in the Cells. He's being thrown in barbed wire. How can you tell me that that's not hurting? How can you tell me that that's not real? Yeah. And it almost gave him this extra credibility that I kind of wore with a bit of pride in the house.
Yeah. Because he's like, oh, fuck, okay, yeah, you got me there.
Dad liked Foley. Dad, he liked his guts. Like, Dad knows what good entertainment is.
Sure.
Like, there's some things you see, and he understood. Even if he doesn't like the form, he got why I loved him.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. It is interesting that, like, back then, WWF used those things and those photos and those clips to sort of get Foley over and do that. And then they would go on to such success, I would say, yet they would go on to sort of like do away with the lessons they learnt with stuff like that and become so insular and not talk about other promotions and, all the things that what I personally think they did wrong for a long period of time. I mean, they still made millions of dollars, so who the fuck am I? But you know what I'm saying, when in that kind of ruthless aggression era where we're like, we're not going to bring in people from the independents and stuff. We're going to train footballers and you know, they were in that real kind of like some of the worst wrestling kind of times. It's so funny that they sort of became so anti what made them what they are, It's kind of weird.
So, yeah, I totally agree. And I think like some of the things that I remember from early WrestleManias or early Royal Rumbles is wrestlers from Japan that I didn't know at the time, but have since gone and studied Japanese wrestling more.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I remember this guy from when he appeared in the Rumble that one time.
Yeah.
So like those crossovers, like some of those crossovers, like really mattered to me. Like the Japanese women's wrestlers that came over were always like huge standouts on the shows every single time.
Sure.
Like, were they the Flying Bomb Angels? I think quite early on they had like a couple.
I know who you're talking about, but I don't know them well enough to not completely butcher like who they are.
Yeah. But those things I remember like they stand out to me. It was like, who's this guy? Where's this from? Because it opens up an entire world of wrestling, right?
Yeah.
It means that there's more beyond this thing. And hopefully WWE are kind of relearning those lessons.
I think they absolutely are. Like, I think it really became like, like a couple of things. I think ego of McMahon after a time. You know what I mean? I've won everything. I own all the companies. I clearly know what is the best wrestling, so nobody can tell me shit, that kind of thing. And then I think as well, they were like, we're trying to go more PG. We're trying to get into those spaces where that isn't there and we kind of don't need anyone else. But what they kind of lost is that they kind of felt like, and I had this attitude as like a young WF fan, I was like, they're the top of the top. They're like the Super Bowl. They're like the NFL of wrestling. Yeah. And it felt like all those promotions fed into it. And it's like, I finally got to the big leagues. But then as a smarter fan, as you get older, when you know that they're cutting those people off and looking down at them and things like that, then they become a parody and they don't feel like that anymore. I was like, they don't feel like the Super Bowl, because I'm like, if it was, this guy would be there. But they won't hire him because of their own bullshit, so fuck him. Like, and I know that this fucking footballer is not a better wrestler than fucking AJ Styles or whatever. Like, it's just not true. And so that is the kind of thing where they got away from themselves. But I think Triple H, I mean, you've seen it in everything that he's sort of always done, like doing the NXT stuff and trying to really push that development, and then like the Cruiserweight Classic, bringing people from around the world. He obviously had to negotiate within the borders of what he had, but now that he is currently in charge, he seems to immediately be pushing it wider. You've heard about the Netflix stuff, and that's going to be more, serious focused and stuff like that. Partnerships with TNA, they're doing stuff, they're trying things, and I think that's really exciting again.
Yeah, me too. And I think the product is the most entertaining it's been in many, many years. What I really hope is that it just becomes a nicer place to be again.
Yeah.
Because I've been in the business for 10 years now, and I know guys that were training at the same school as me that have been in the business for 17 years. And when the WWE did the whole WWE UK thing, like they swept a couple of my friends up, people that I knew, and their experiences were pretty negative. Like, there were very few people that came out of the WWE system saying hugely positive things. It seems like under Vince, I think everybody can see that it was kind of a soul-crushing place.
Yeah.
Like, personally, my goal was never WWE, and I think that's part of the reason, because the second this becomes that kind of job, where you find yourself swimming against the tide a lot of the time, it's really affecting for your mental health, right? Especially when you're being judged by a lot of people at the same time. And I'm not sure I could cope with I saw friends that have wanted this very, very badly for a long time come out of it with worse mental health, kind of body like issues with the way they look, and just not very nice, you know. So I'm hoping they can make it the place that people do want to be working again, the place that becomes like the destination place, because it used to be that everybody wanted to be on WrestleMania because that's where the big money is and the big platform is, and there are some people now that just they don't want to go that route at all because of what they know about that place.
Absolutely, there's so much negativity that surrounds it, and I quite a while ago, especially as I started getting into independent wrestling, into stuff like New Japan, learning about death matches, you know, the elite thing happens, all that stuff. I really fell out of WWE because what they had become was really like not for me personally. But I've never kind of been a WWE hater because I've always said I'm like WWE is just like one good storyline, one, you know, regime change, whatever it is, away from bringing me back in. I literally just said to a mate the other day, I'm like, I'm fucking Cypher from the Matrix. Like, I want to be plugged back in. My life would be so much fucking easier, like, if WWE was just good, right? Like, and then I wouldn't need to go to all these places and blah, blah, blah. And so, like, I would love to just be like, wrestling is WWE and I have one app and blah, blah, and I can just plug in and just be happy, right? But unfortunately, I woke up from the fucking Matrix, pulled out the fucking thing out my mouth, and I'm looking at all the other wrestling, and then I'm peering back at the Matrix, and what I see isn't what I like, and that's a problem, right? Like, so plug me back in. It'll fucking make my life easier. You know what I mean? So that's where I am at it, and I feel like they're kind of working towards that, you know, and I hope they can fucking do it because it's like where all my childhood heroes lie. It's why I kind of start the podcast the way I do every time with this little bit of a reminisce, because it's fun to enjoy it and to think about fucking dudes like Mr. Perfect and the Big Boss Man and the Legion of Doom, and like, because they're like my childhood heroes, right? But like there was so much negativity and so much bad wrestling and so much repetitiveness, and then fucking McMahon and all his bullshit. It's like it taints everything that you used to love, you know, and that sucks.
Well, here you go then. Let me throw this one at you. Let's add some levity. Here's my favorite childhood memory of watching WWE.
Let's do it. Okay.
Right? So, Axe enters the Royal Rumble number 1. Smash enters the Royal Rumble number 2.
Yeah.
As a kid, I could not fucking believe what I was seeing. I thought Demolition are going to have to fight each other, right? I don't think I've ever been more excited than watching that VHS at my nan's house.
They were the only official WWF toys I ever had. So, like, in Australia, it wasn't easy to get them. But I remember one Christmas, my nana got me the double pack of fucking Axe and Smash, and like, and they had the hoods on them and all, whatever. I used to want all those figures. Only ever had those two guys. But yeah, that was crazy.
See, WWE, like, if it wasn't for them, like, I wouldn't be as big of a fan as I am. And although that's not the route that I've personally chosen to go down, I think, you know, fair play to anybody who makes it to WWE and makes it of themselves.
Absolutely.
It's an incredible place to be, and it can do wonders for you, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I do think their product's getting better again. I've been enjoying it since before WrestleMania. I thought WrestleMania was actually genuinely quite exciting.
We all got together and watched WrestleMania, you know. I'm like, I've always been
wouldn't have happened. Right?
No, it wouldn't have. And I'm like a big Cody fan. You know what I mean? Like I've, especially like when he got out of WWE, I really got into what he was doing in the independents and in New Japan. And I've been fortunate enough to meet him a few times at different like meet and greets and things like that. And he's always just so cool, like such a professional in a room of like dudes, like, you know, just in their workout gear who look uninterested to be there. He's there in a suit, fucking talking to everybody, shaking hands. Like he's working. Like every time he goes everywhere, and I like really respect that. And so it's just so cool. Like I feel like in a lot of ways he's sort of one of my guys, and so it was really, really cool to see him do that. And I had fun with the show. There was definitely stuff we fucking skipped through because we obviously watch it on delay, you know, like we're not going to take the day off work and we watch it that night. And we're like, what's this? We've got 6 hours to get through and it's 8 p.m. on a Monday night. We're like, fast forward, fuck this, like, you know. But we watched the stuff we wanted to, and we had like a really good time with it, you know. And that's where I'm like, fucking plug me back in, bro. Like, it just do a good work. And I've got a friend, shout out to Ryan from Brucha Libre. You always want a friend who makes wrestling themed beer, but he's like a big E guy, and he's like, you've got to watch the last 2 weeks of Raw. He's like, they're really like getting it together. He said like the stuff they're doing with the new Wyatt family thing and stuff like that. He said they're doing like some really good stuff. Yeah.
Yep, I agree with him. I think they are. That stuff was really, really cool, really effective. Like better than a lot of the like mid to late Bray Wyatt stuff, I would say.
Sure.
I think they kind of. It was hard with Bray, wasn't it? Because I really wanted to buy into it, but they made it quite hard for him.
Yeah,
to get over.
They did, and he was fucking trying, man. You know what I mean? Like,
he was.
Again, it's like, how do you fuck up Bray Wyatt, right? But again, like that comes back to the previous regime. Like, I think if it was like the people that are in charge now running it, Bray Wyatt would be at the top of the fucking
based on what I've seen the past couple of weeks, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I don't think they'd have dropped the ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we'll see. It's only 2 weeks in. We'll see.
Yeah. So when we talk about one last reminisce kind of thing, and then we'll move into how you even found wrestling and were able to start training. You mentioned obviously your dad. You're enjoying wrestling in the house. He's kind of having a little bit of a harder time to buy into it. Do you have any like memories? Like, did he ever watch it with you and stuff like that? Because it was one thing that like my dad and I didn't always enjoy the same stuff. He's real outdoorsy and things like that, and I wasn't as into it. But we were both like really like, I got him into wrestling with me when I used to rent the videos, and we would like watch, fucking Stone Cold Stunning McMahon 100 times and fucking real big Bret Hart guys and stuff like that. And we would watch wrestling together. I remember sitting in our living room and watching Undertaker throw Mankind off that Hell in a Cell. And I remember him shooting up out of his chair, like, what the fuck kind of thing. Did you guys ever have that? Like, would he sit and watch it with you? Got any kind of memories like that? Or was he always a bit like, come on now, this is shit?
So it's interesting, actually. Like, that never did happen. No, my dad was very negative about me, and my dad didn't always have like the most positive relationship when I was younger. We were quite combative with each other. Yeah. He always wanted me to do boxing, I think.
Yeah, okay.
And I didn't. And he was bullied as a kid, and he became he started training as a boxer to defend himself. But then, because I think he's probably got ADHD, the same as I have, he hyper-focused and went all in on boxing and became a professional boxer eventually. And like that's what he really wanted from me. He wanted me to be able to defend myself. He wanted me to go into a high-level sport. He knew that I had the ability to do it.
Sure.
I just didn't want to.
Yeah.
I loved this thing that my nan loved, which was professional wrestling.
Yeah.
And it hurt him, I think.
Yeah.
Like he kept saying, right, you've got to do something then. What do you want to do? And I said, okay, which martial art is the most like professional wrestling?
Yeah.
And he said, right, judo. We'll get you doing judo. So I did judo for years and became a black belt in judo.
Yeah, wow.
Just to kind of appease my dad and have a relationship with him, because it felt enough like professional wrestling that I could get away with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because judo's taking bumps.
You're like, you can use this. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So there's a crossover kind of like skill base in those two things. So for me, it was like, that's the compromise.
Yeah.
So no, we never had those times. I had them with my nan. I used to sit in my nan's wheelchair and we'd watch wrestling together.
Yeah.
But my dad now is incredibly proud of me and my career. Like, he literally came to see me win a title a couple of weeks ago, because he sees that actually I've now gone on to do what he did as a professional boxer, which is do this on a relatively high level. Right? In this country, I'm on the shows that I want to be on at like the kind of higher level. Not always, I still do some small shows. I do local shows. I try and keep bookings up, and they're not all big, but there's enough big ones so that when my dad comes, he can see parallels between his old boxing career and what I'm doing now. And I think he gets that feeling that he actually did get a boxer as a son a little bit, not quite, but close enough.
Yeah, I can see that, and I can also see how it would sort of be hard. This is a man who dedicates himself to a discipline and a sport, and then you're enjoying like a parody of sport. And then he's like, but this isn't real. This isn't like what I fucking built my life around, Yeah. But it's really cool that now after all that time, he can really see that artistry with you. You know what I mean? He's like, wait, this is physical. He is working really hard, but yet there's this thing and this performance aspect that also really fills you up, with joy and satisfaction. And that he can enjoy that. I think that's really cool, and it's interesting. Like dads and family and stuff like that, and fathers and sons, and like sometimes you can't always see the same things, but once it does kind of click, and sometimes you can let go of your own shit or whatever, and see from their point of view how much they can go on to enjoy what you do. So I love to hear that he enjoys coming to your shows and things like that. How's he feel about like deathmatch stuff? Because obviously you're taking it to a little bit of a different level with that, because that isn't always hot with the parents.
So he loves it because after he finished boxing, he went on to do multiple other martial arts, including kind of like endurance course martial arts. So things like going into the woods, taking your boots off and carrying like logs through the woods, and those kind of things, like knocking down a house with their bare hands. I think he had a 25-man group that knocked down a house with their bare hands at one point, just for the sake of doing it.
What, just wearing like boxing gloves and punching down a house?
Yeah. There's videos of his trainer, Malcolm Large, doing it on YouTube. Where my dad wasn't involved in that one, but he did it multiple times. So my dad was... There's pictures. You know how I use something called nettles, which is quite all over the place in the UK. They're kind of like a plant, and they itch.
They're like they're like an irritating sort of plant, spiky. Yeah.
You get them everywhere here. They're a fucking nightmare, and they hurt like hell if you sting yourself.
Yeah,
on
sure.
them. Mm-hmm. Well, I remember us having a photo book of my dad, one of my dad's gradings for karate. And he was wrapped in nettles,
wow.
with a theory being that pain is in the mind. You focus on the thing that you're doing, and you can control that pain.
Wow,
it's like right.
Yeah.
So I think that it was almost inevitable that I was going to end up doing deathmatch, because the legacy that he's got, like,
pretty
and the
extreme.
gore and stuff that I used to like as a kid. Like, where was I going to land,
Yeah, exactly. You were already seeing it. Wow, that's super interesting. And then, so you could absolutely see him appreciating it, because he's like, well, if you're going to do it, you're taking it as far as it can go. And you're suffering, like, for your discipline. You know what I mean? Which 100%. Is, wow.
Like, he'd rather I didn't get cut up and scarred up and stuff, I'm sure, because, like, he worries that I'm going to get seriously hurt,
of course.
As I'm sure, but... He likes it. He digs it.
So you're in school. He's encouraging you to get into judo and martial arts, and you follow that through. How do you then find wrestling training? Because I mean, it might have been a little bit easier where you are, but here in Australia, wrestling was so far away, and I couldn't have even imagined finding training as much as I wanted to, when I was a kid. Yeah. How do you then find your way into it?
So it's not, obviously everything's a lot closer together here because our country is minuscule compared to yours. So schools are closer together. It's not as hard to travel, but there were so few of them because we had... on TV over here on Channel 4, we had World of Sport, which is famous for having Big Daddy and Giant Haystack.
Yes, I know it, yeah.
And it was absolutely huge over here. Like, it was what most families watched on a Sunday afternoon, because there were only 4 channels, and that was one of them, and it was entertaining and fun. So wrestling had a giant boom period, and then World of Sport got cancelled, and died a death.
Yeah, sure.
And when I started training, it was just as it was about to start taking an upturn again, when your Will Ospreys and your Mark Andrews and these professional wrestlers that, now have quite a lot of renown. They were just kind of coming up as I found a school. So what happened was, I used to work as a care worker.
Mm-hmm.
I was 25 at the time, I think. I'd kind of come out of university. I'd done a theatre degree just because I liked performing, not because I wanted a job or anything. I just wanted to do 3 years of acting.
Sure.
So I went to uni and did that. And again, see how everything that I've done has kind of built up to being a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
That's like another tick in the box, right? Performance tick. So I came out of university with no real plan to do anything, and ended up landing a care work job just to make some money. And a guy that I was supporting was a huge, huge wrestling fan as well. He used to love Triple H, and he was autistic, really, really autistic. He used to do all the mannerisms and pretend to water spit and pretend to punch at me. And we were stood outside waiting for a bus, and he was pretending to throw punches at me as in a wrestling style. I couldn't touch him. You're not allowed to,
yeah, of course.
I couldn't be like wrestling around with him, but it's quite clear what we were doing, I'm pretending like he's hitting me and going like that. And a gentleman walks over the road and said, "Do you two know that there's a wrestling school literally 2 minutes up the path there?" And obviously I couldn't take the gentleman, because he's very autistic, didn't really understand the difference between real and not real, and where the line is drawn, and so he couldn't have gone. But I thought to myself, wait, there's a wrestling school like 20 minutes from my door. I had no idea. So had I not been in that care work job, having a resident throw hands at me, then I would maybe never found out about House of Pain.
Yeah, it came across your doorstep, like it's like literally, it's
like it was fate.
Yeah,
like it was supposed to happen, right?
Yeah, sure.
I don't necessarily believe in that, but in terms of my wrestling career, like judo, acting, that care role, finding wrestling, the way that death matches happen, it does kind of feel like it all just
it's all falling into place. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was one of the things. I was friends with Andrew Crammond, who is the owner of Bleeding Gums. He's obviously a bud of mine. We enjoyed talking shit about wrestling and stuff like that. And then he's like, he's a Scottish guy. He got sick of traveling to fucking wrestling, basically. He's like, fuck it, I'm going to open my own company. I'm sick of waiting for people. He's so fed up with everything all the time. He's so Scottish. But he's like, I'm just going to fucking do it myself, And then he's going to put on the show and he's promoting it and stuff. And I'm like, mate, if you need help with commentary, I can help you. He's like, yeah, that'd be fucking great. And so I jump into it. So the first time I see you is leading up to the Bleeding Gums show. And I saw like the promo, just promo on Instagram or whatever, like leading up to it, and then your match and stuff. But the reason why you stood out to me as a character straight away was that promo stuff, right? It's not always something that people in independent wrestling do fucking well. They don't. I try and explain this to people all the time, but I feel like the difference between like a good promo and like a bad promo is whether the person believes it, right? Like it's literally in your eyes, yeah? Like how you look at there's like a weight. This is when I do it or when I, feel something like that. Like I feel like I can feel it in my eyes, right? Like it's like a weight pushing in my eyes. And when I saw you speak, I instantly felt that. I was like, he's absolutely real. You know what I mean? Like he is this person in this moment. And now that you tell me your background and how you got to where you are and you talk about the acting thing and stuff like that, it absolutely all makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, and why that works. And it's such an underestimated part of professional wrestling. A lot of people do get really focused on the athletics and stuff like that. But if you look at this whole conversation, when we're talking about all the big dumb wrestlers that used to, fight Undertaker and, even somebody like Mick Foley that wasn't the most athletic, super ripped dude or whatever. It is that. At the end of the day, you strip it all back, and it's that authenticity that cuts through everything. You know what I mean? And if you can do that, you're already, in my mind, leagues ahead of anybody else.
I think I was always aware that it was a skill that I had, that doing monologues, basically, right? That not everybody else even liked doing, right?
Yeah.
So my thinking was, well, this is something that I can work on.
Sure.
Like, my gimmick's very stripped back, it's not, it doesn't have a lot of the glitz and glamour of, like, Tomby's very, like, he looks like a demon out of a horror film. And
he does. He's all gimmicks and
whereas my look is like jeans and a ripped old battered jacket, and it's very stripped back. And so what I wanted to do was make sure that everything I do kind of connects and feels real.
Yeah.
Because the idea is that Alton Thorne is like the twisted version of me that didn't deal with all the stuff that I've managed to deal with in my life and kind of went the other way,
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I am kind of able to tap into a certain amount of reality, because I know that had I not kind of like dealt with trauma and all those kind of things, then that's the kind of person that I might be.
Yeah.
So I think that's why you see a little hint of reality in it, because I'm genuinely passionate about wrestling, love it. And because I knew that this was a skill set that I could offer that might give me a bit of an advantage. And I think it has, actually.
Yeah.
Like you said, like, I think me and Jack Bennett, because we both cut a couple of promos before we did that show, people knew, or enough people in the crowd knew going into it, that there was a little bit of heat.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
When we both came out,
like, I didn't know anybody on that show, you know what I mean? But I knew you two from the promos, and that's just some simple YouTube, like Instagram promos. It's nothing fucking crazy. You guys haven't shot a fucking movie, but it was enough that I felt invested.
No edits, like we didn't put any music behind it. Just one take. It was just me and Jack genuinely talking passionately about wrestling, right?
Absolutely.
And that's how we were trying to connect.
Yeah.
Make it real, make people feel like.
And look at it now. Like, you're literally wearing like a fucking Seiyazawa designed shirt, wire and ice, based around the match that you guys are about to have. You know what I mean? That's fucking crazy, dude. And it's like, it's interesting that you said, you're able to sort of tap into that stuff that you went through. And that's interesting and very true, because like, you may not have that chip on your shoulder anymore, but you know what that chip feels like, right? Like, so you're able to always remember it and kind of be there. And that is maybe where some people don't have the ability to be that. And what I liked about you, and what I like about, I guess all kind of my favorite wrestlers, when I really get into it and really get into promos, is when it's like, when you strip it all back and all the bullshit and all the gimmicks, it's like, no, what you don't understand, people out there, and what my opponent doesn't understand, is that I'm the fucking best. I am the best. This title is the best because I hold it. I am the best wrestler, and that's the only reason why I'm fucking here. And when a character can distill down to that, and then just everything else blooms from it, you know what I mean? And that's so important. And it is really hard, I think, for like a lot of wrestlers to really do that. Even high-level ones, you know what I mean, that are on fucking big shows and shit now and things like that. There is not many. Like, if I think about, AEW and like the card that's coming up now, there aren't a lot of guys that can cut that kind of promo or really do that. Like, I think Swerve at the moment can. Like, him as a guy, he absolutely can. Will Ospreay actually can now. He didn't used to be able to, but
AEW is not bad for it. There are a few in AEW that can carry a promo.
Yeah.
I do think Ospreay does have.
He's
like,
getting
these
there.
days
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously MJF's back now, and he cuts a
he can
brilliant promo.
Absolutely. But for a long time, like WWE and shit like that, like it just wasn't there, like at all. And if that's not there, it doesn't matter fucking how big a fucking show you book, how much glitz and glam and shit. I just don't care. Like, I need to be able to throw that, suspension of disbelief in there. So how did it go for you then? So you find out about this school, it's just around the corner from your house. What do you do? Like, at the end of your shift, do you just go and fucking knock on the door, or like, how do you walk into it?
So he gave me the name of the person that I would be able to find on Facebook. And I went home and typed it in, and messaged him straight away, because as soon as I'd heard, I knew that like this is the only chance I'm going to have at this, like kind of like you, I didn't there wasn't really that much of a scene for it. I didn't realize that it was an option.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I could become a pro wrestler. And I was 25 at this point.
Sure.
So,
the window's closing, as well. Like you're like, I'm getting older and stuff like that. Like now would be the time to do it.
You don't want to start building up your bump clock, like heading towards your 30s. You want to get some years in of like endurance and
sure.
So I knew that like I had to. It was now or never. It was one of those got to go do it things. And I did. I went to my first training session, and I was put in a side room with one of Styx's more experienced guys, and they ran me through some basic stuff. But what I realized quickly was that he thought I was really good, because he was like going, oh, okay, I'm moving on to something else. Mm-hmm. And it was like he was surprised how quickly we was going through the stuff that he was showing me.
Yeah.
And then he was like, right, Styx, come over here.
Yeah. And do you think that is due to being like a lifelong fan, but also like stuff like your judo training and things like that, like 100%. Understanding? Yeah.
100%. I was bumping immediately because I knew what a bump was. I'd been taking them all my life.
Sure.
Like I've been thrown, I'd landed multiple times safely. I knew exactly what I was doing with that. So picking those kind of things up. And then, like you say, being a lifelong fan, I knew that if I was going to throw a strike, I need to draw it back, right? Mm. You can't throw a strike from here. Nobody will see it. You got to draw it back so that the whole crowd can see it. Now, I know that as in just kind of taking it in over like 30 years of being a fan. Like I wouldn't have needed to be told that. Uh-huh. Even when you're like backyard wrestling, that most people are picking up on things like that, right? So it was only like really the fundamentals, like the hidden things that you don't see unless you actually go to training, that I needed to learn. Like, the really obvious things, like which side to work when you first go in, because I wouldn't have necessarily spotted that. Yeah, because the naked eye doesn't always. But then it's obvious as soon as you're told, you're like, oh, that's how it all kind of fits together then, because they're all, those kind of things. And from there, it was just, I was going every week for at least 2 to 3 sessions a week. Mm-hmm. You could barely drag me out of the place. I got about 4 months into training, I got hit by a bus. Hurt a little bit. Yeah, hurt my knee. I was back in training 3 days later. Yeah, I was just like unstoppable at that point. It was like, right, I've got to get this done. I need to be on shows.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you had a go. How did you get hit by a bus?
I was going home from training. Me and a friend were so happy with how the session had gone. We didn't see the double decker coming round the corner.
Oh, it was like a fucking
yeah. And it hit my friend who was on the left of me, and my friend hit me, and I flew about 8 foot down the road. Yeah. The bus immediately stopped, and my friend kind of crumpled to the floor. Yeah. I think he had to sleep downstairs for 3 months because he did some serious damage to his hip.
Oh my God.
I had a swollen knee, and just about that was it. Yeah. I felt really bad for the bus driver. It was our fault. We just weren't paying attention. Yeah. So he really cut up about
the fact it was a fucking double decker bus is so funny. But that is great. And there was 2 of you. But that's fucking crazy, dude. I'm so glad you fucking didn't die. Neither.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And you were probably feeling like, I was telling you off mic, when we first started, that I recently just broke my wrist, right? And it's one of those things, like, it's a super inconvenient injury, but it's one of those situations where you're like, kind of lucky I didn't just fucking kill myself though. So that feels good. Yeah, I'm like, I can work through this. I could have busted my back. I could have cracked my head. It's kind of like.
So how did you do it? What happened?
Nothing cool. I fucking slipped over in a hotel shower. But it was so fucking dumb. So like everyone's like, did you fucking break it in the mosh pit at a concert? Did you fucking do this? And I'm like, I fucking wish, a lot of people know that I fucking do the commentary at the deathmatch show. They're like, were you in the ring or whatever? I'm like, no, like I wish it was something cool. But the scenario was extra dumb too. So we were we'd been out, we'd gone to a concert and stuff. We'd flown to Melbourne to go see these bands and stuff. Gone to see Sleep Token, if you know who they were. They were supporting Bring Me the Horizon. Caught them, and then we came back to the hotel. And we were staying in this hotel where it's a big building, like a 3-story building, and the actual hotel is on the roof of the building. It's all like Airstream camper vans, you know, like the silver ones, and like it's like a trailer park on the roof of a building. And us and our friends all rented out all the different trailers, which was really fun. And we had kind of organised, and we had the bit bigger one, and it had a spa there. So me and my wife went in the spa. Now it sounds like the spa would be how I would break my wrist, but nothing that cool. So we're in there. I'm like, get a bit tired. I'm like, I'm gonna go to the shower, get thigged off. Then I'll help you get out, whatever. It's quite deep, and then we'll go to bed or whatever. So I went. I had my shower, no worries. Got out, came back, went to help my wife get out because we don't want her to slip over or whatever. Get out of the spa, and it was kind of deep. So I ended up like standing in the spa again, like putting a leg in kind of thing, and helping her get out, get her in. She went for her shower. The only reason I went back in that fucking shower was just to rinse my legs off one more time so I could go to sleep, because at that time I'd been awake for 24 hours, like we had landed in Melbourne at 4 a.m. and it was now like 3. Like, so. And I stepped in there, and dude, when I say there was no saving myself, like it was one of the most extreme fucking speed falls of my life. It was like I stepped in, and it was like a fucking cartoon. Like I was gone. Like
hitting ice. Immediately hitting ice.
And I've done that before. I actually busted the shoulder on this same arm in Japan hitting ice like that. And I went in, just completely ate it, and so fast. But it was like a step down into the shower. So there was like a little bit of a ledge. So I slipped so fast, and then I fell backwards, but onto my wrist on the ledge. So I essentially severed both bones with my weight. And it's actually fucking super traumatic to even think about. But when I landed, as I got up, I remember just thinking something bad has fucking happened. Like I was like, this isn't good. And then I looked down, and my hand is like dangling off. No blood, but like I've clearly snapped both bones. I was like, and now I can't go to sleep. This is fucked. Like,
23 hours, and it's going to be at least what?
Yeah,
10,
exactly.
12?
And then my wife was a fucking hero, because she had to. I was like, "Bub, I've actually seriously hurt myself." She's like, she was brushing her teeth with her back to me, like in the bathroom. She's like, what the fuck just happened? And I'm like, I have really fucked up my wrist. And she's like, oh no. She figured out she had to like get me up, and she made a sling for me out of the fucking towel and dressed me and fucking called an ambulance. But there was like an ambulance strike on in Melbourne. So then she had to get an Uber and fucking get me down the stairs. And I was like blacking out. Like, I think probably two things. A, because I'm so fucking tired, and B, shock, She had to get me into the emergency room, like, and fucking they had to reset my fucking the bones in my wrist, cast me up. Then they ended up letting me go. I ended up finishing the holiday because we had planned to go down south and go on these wine tours and things like that. I just fucking went with everybody, cast in a sling. And then I flew back to Perth. Then I had to wait like a week or so, like after consults and stuff, to then get surgery. So I lived with like loose kind of fucking bones for like over a week, and it sucked. Like, it was terrible. Absolutely terrible.
I think you just outgrew some injury to deathmatch wrestlers. So well done there. Like.
Yes, fucking little bit of credibility around here, about time. But I will say though that I fucking will never step into a shower like not holding a wall ever again. I reckon it was not fun, man. Like,
it sounds fucking horrible.
It was so fucking, and like like when you have memories of like bad things that have happened to you, and. Yeah. And it's also accompanied with being so tired and all of those things, like, and it's fucking, it's just like the fucking scene out of a movie. Right? Yeah. And like, because it was that caravan, it had like, kind of perspex panels, like, because it was kind of retro and stuff. So that the imagery in my mind is all like reddy and orange and purple, and like it seems like a fucking fever dream. You know what I mean? Like, because I was laying there in like the shadows of these weird lights and stuff. Like, it was bad, but I was so lucky she was there. She was my fucking hero. And then she went back to the, like, while they kind of knocked me out and stuff, she went back, and like I was like, go back, get some sleep, come find me tomorrow when, the rest of the crew woke up. But she went back. She was too fucked up over it. She went back and just packed up all our shit. And then, like, when I woke up in the hospital, she was just, like, in the room sitting there with me and had both our suitcases. She just wheeled them fucking through, through the hospital. And she can be a fucking absolute trooper when it comes down to it. And it was wild because all our friends were in, like, the caravans, next door. And they're like, why the fuck didn't you just come knock on the door? Because she was messaging them and nobody had woken up or whatever. So she just dealt with it all herself. And they were like, dude, like, just fucking. James was like, at 3 o'clock, I was eating fucking a hamburger in the camper next door to you. I didn't hear any of this shit. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, you should just come. They would have sorted everything. You know what I mean? But I will say that, like, you do learn through going through stuff like this, and you would probably feel the same, like, through injuries and stuff. When you go through hard stuff like that, it really just put into perspective who's, like, really there for you. Like, not only her, but, like, the entire friend group that we were with on this holiday just fucking rallying around me and taking care of me and fucking all this shit. Like, it was kind of, it's a real eye-opener. And so, though I don't really want to do it again, there's sort of like a gratefulness that comes along with it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I would say in terms of, like, injuries in deathmatch over here, like, all of the boys were very close-knit. We all get on really, really well.
Yeah.
Like, that would be a very supportive place to injure yourself,
Yeah.
Like, I feel like with the people around me, there's no way I'd be left on my own. They'd make sure to get me to the right place. They'd get me the treatment I needed. Like, I have that kind of security with the lads, because the lads over here, the deathmatch boys, we're pretty tight, we all get on very, very well.
It's a pretty small scene, you know what I mean? And it is one of the reasons, I know a few of the guys that exist in that space with you, like I'm buds with Joe, big F and Joe. I'm buds with Clint Margera. I've done interviews with them and things like that. And when Clint was over here, I had the opportunity to hang out with him. I think, what was it? Jesus, it wasn't even that many shows deep. I'm talking like 3rd or 4th show for Dude, Where's My Ring? We had Clint Margera here and Neil Diamond Cutter on the same show, and I took him for lunch out in Fremantle and things like that and hung out with him and stuff. And I was like, what fucking world is this? You know what I mean? That I'm just fucking hanging out with this dude. I had interviewed him like, a year or so prior. But there is like this great group of really down-to-earth people in that scene. And it was really, really awesome to see like Bleeding Gums succeeding so quickly, because I knew that Andrew was going to put all his like effort into it,
Yeah. Clint Margera is absolutely lovely. Like, I remember like watching him on tapes that I'd bought from kind of like a dodgy like DVD seller when it was like Smart Mark Video, but I didn't know anything about, like, I wouldn't have known about torrenting or anything like that. So I had to find wrestling from somewhere, because it was so hard to get transported over to England at that point, right? Sure. And I found a guy who was selling DVDs that he clearly torrented from online and was selling them off.
Just burned them himself. Yeah, hell yeah.
And I bought a CZW show. I think Clint faced Tremont on it. He had, back when he had quite large hair, like he still had the same haircut. It just grew out further, so it looked like he had quite a big bonnet of hair. So like getting to meet Clint for me was like a big deal, because I'm thinking, this is a guy that's legit. Like, I've seen him on show. He's a British guy that other than Iceman, who I knew of because of his work, because he'd had matches with Foley and all the stuff with Ulf Herman. So I knew Iceman, but Clint was the only other guy that I knew prior to getting into deathmatch all about, and as a fan. So to meet Clint and for him to be the sweetheart that he is, he's such a lovely bloke. He's helped me massively. I've had 3 matches with him, and he's put me over. He's done everything he can. It's great. He's not an outlier. Like, all the guys are like that.
Yeah.
Like, no bullshit. I've never been part of like a troupe when acting, or any kind of group that is as kind of like nice and upfront and cool as those guys. So
that can kind of really be what and you should be, and it's like in my experience, I've found like most deathmatch wrestlers to be that way. It's how I ended. I didn't start this podcast to be a fucking guy that interviews deathmatch wrestlers. You know what I mean? It just sort of happened. And even now, I still don't say this is a deathmatch podcast. It's just the natural sort of progression of how I, end up doing interviews and stuff. It's usually through human connection, right? Like I know this guy who then goes, oh, you should talk to my bud like this. And they're just all deathmatch guys, right? And so it just kind of continues through like the natural kind of progression of it. And all of you, like by and large, there's obviously always exceptions and stuff like that, are just like these amazing people that I think the kind of wrestler or the kind of, person that gets to that kind of level usually love it so much to take it to that extreme that there is, people would be like, oh, they must be the fucking crazy ones and stuff. It's like, usually they're just the biggest fans. And it's just like that it just came to that extreme in the same way that, like, a lot of musos that are really technically minded, in performance end up playing in metal bands and stuff like that. It's kind of the same thing in a way.
Oh, agreed. Totally agree. Mm-hmm. I think part of the reason that you will have ended up talking to deathmatch wrestlers so frequently as well is because we're always so cognizant of that we're trying to build a scene, right?
Yeah.
And that now clearly that scene stretches, but it's still a small scene. Like, although I'm talking to you in Australia, and yesterday, a couple of days ago, I did a podcast for a Scottish company. Mm-hmm. Like, even though it is spread about, we're not great numbers, right?
Exactly.
Like, this is still
it's still the niche of the niche. Yeah, absolutely.
The niche, right?
Yeah.
So we're always aware that to get eyes on the product, you need to reach out and be as fan friendly and as contactable as possible, mm-hmm. because without those fans that will go to all those shows, without the people that are putting that extra bit of effort, then the scene dies pretty quickly.
Yeah,
because the tickets are pretty expensive and it hurts quite a lot. So
absolutely, and it's like not everybody likes the kind of stuff that that we enjoy and do. And things like that. And so if you're alienating them, then there's not going to be anybody fucking watching. So it doesn't really work quite well. And which is why I don't really get the fucking, the cardi promoters that you hear of in like the US that just like rip off their fans and shit. And you're like, why? This doesn't make sense, dude. Like if you actually just build a good promotion, people will continue to buy your stuff. Like the snatch and grab shit. I don't fucking get it. Like,
100%, and I'll take this opportunity to put Andy over as much as he'll fucking hate it.
Absolute professional. For a fucking drunk, psychotic Scotsman, he's fucking got his shit together pretty hard, eh?
I couldn't believe well he pulled it all together.
When the first show, he's like, I'm just gonna fucking do it myself and shit. I'm like, oh fuck, okay. I'm like, yeah, you do it, man. And then when I actually saw it come together and like his work ethic, because the motherfucker knows how to work, and he's sending me videos, and he's just like out in the streets with a fucking backpack of flyers, walking around, fucking putting them there. Yeah. And like, he's resourcing guardrails. I say this with, and things like that. Like just fucking putting in the work, and like I can immediately see like his roster, like really responding to him and like repping the company and stuff like that. I'm like, he's already doing the right things because they believe in him. You know what I mean? And like you say, he doesn't really want to be. First and foremost, he hates being on camera. We give him shit on commentary all the time, when we're calling him Moby on the last fucking, we're like, the thing is like, what I mean? He hates it, but he just fucking loves wrestling.
Didn't you think he was really good on camera on that last show?
Absolutely, because he's a wrestling fan. You know what I mean? He fucking knows. He knows what you need to do.
The handshake with Jack and it was so good.
Yeah.
Like he really
sincerity. He
well.
fucking knows how to do it, man. He absolutely fucking knows how to do it. You know what I mean? This is a man who fucking started like a fucking YouTube channel just so he could scream at the clouds on his own in his room while he fucking drank booze and wanted to yell about deathmatch wrestling because he had nobody to speak to about it. You know what I mean? That's like a passion project. It's the analogies between me and him are the same. I started a podcast because I was like, I've got no cunt to fucking speak to about this. I'm going to yell into the fucking ether. And so the first 30 plus episodes of this podcast are me just talking about shit I like, to nobody, essentially, just because I fucking needed to like get it out of my body, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's the kind of same thing. And he's just this super passionate individual. And I see only success for what he does because he's fucking gonna give it his all.
Yep, and because he gives it us his all and is professional and sorts us out accommodation and makes sure that we're paid and all those things that, you know, should be standard, but in the wrestling business they're not always standard. Like, because of that, we'll give him everything as well.
Absolutely.
Like we all want to expand this and make this as UK wide as possible anyway, right? So if these opportunities will pop up, we'll already try our best to do it, but especially for somebody like Andy who put in the work and the grind and like filled up his telephone book with contacts and then went away and like built something. And we all looked at that show and thought, he's put every single wrestler under the sun on this. He's going to lose his arse. And he didn't lose his arse.
Nah.
Like, he just about made money.
Yeah.
Which
is crazy for a first show of that level. I couldn't believe how good it looked on camera when we loaded it up to like watch it together and call it, because, you know, it was a few days later. He edits everything. Well, I think he's got an editor, but for that first one, he edits. So
sick of editing Lust for Death over and over again that he's
absolutely. But that's what I mean. He fucking did it all himself. If anybody has fucking like tuned into the Bleeding Gum shows, like, it's Andy's blood, sweat, and tears from the fucking ground up. You know what I mean? The man edits everything. He fucking does the commentary with us, like, you know, all that stuff. Like, that's a huge learning curve for him. He's not a commentator. Neither was I a fucking year ago. You know, like he just puts himself into it, and it's really great to see. You know, and I'm really glad to see that you guys see that as well. And I think he's gonna fucking make something of it. And I think he's already building a like real sort of groundswell of people that are really into it. And I think the analogies between Bleeding Gums Wrestling and what we've been doing here with Perth, with Dude, Where's My Ring, is that there hasn't been that in Scotland before, the same as there has never been it in Perth, Western Australia. And so people who have not historically come to wrestling or had interest in wrestling see get the word of mouth, see the clips and things like that for something like deathmatch wrestling. They're like, what the fuck is this? You know, like, I have friends that come to do Where's My Ring that would never go to like the local just pro wrestling show. They could not give a fuck about it. We put on a dude show, they're there absolutely because it's a spectacle. They can drink in a bar. People are fighting in front of them. There's blood everywhere. They're like, what the fuck's going on? Like, that is for somebody that's something else. You know, it's a completely different spectacle. It's a completely different realm. And there's definitely a market for it.
This is what I say to professional wrestlers who try to give me feedback on death matches that relates to the kind of shows that they would be on. I have to say, what you've got to understand is we're not playing to the same audience. Most of these deathmatch fans are not going to family-friendly shows. They're not watching WWE. They will pay and go to watch all of the deathmatch shows that they can. They're watching American deathmatch shows on IWTV. They're not looking for the same beats in a match that you would put on a family show. Now, luckily, I think in Britain, across the UK, I think our wrestling, in terms of our deathmatch wrestlers, we all have a strong base of fundamental knowledge about wrestling. We all do family shows as well, all of us. Like, there isn't a single one over here that's just doing death matches or is self-taught.
Because there's not enough wrestling, right? Like, you've just got to do everything that you can,
Yeah, 100%. It's a small country. You've got to sweep up what you can. So, like, B.A. Rose is doing family shows all the time. Big fucking Joe, family shows all the time. Danny Darko, champ for a family company. Tom B, champ for a family company. Like, that's the same across the board. So we, you know, I feel like one of the advantages that we've got over here is that we kind of keep that standard of actual fundamental wrestling up in the death matches. I think it gives us a little bit of advantage. I'm not sure where I was going with that. I can't remember where I started.
That's okay. But he did give me
everybody over, so I'm fine with that.
That's it. Just get them all over. I'll speak about Big F and Joe real quick, because he's another guy that, like, when I got on the phone with him, much like I did with you, we immediately clicked. And I think us fucking Australians and Brits and Scottish, we're all the fucking same anyway. But
agreed.
we were fucking drinking at this sort of time and were immediately cooked. It was fucking one of the drunkest podcasts I've ever done. But he was telling me about doing like the camps or whatever, you know, how they do like the touring stuff. Like as he was coming up, he went on like the camp circuit where, you know, all the kids are down there and they would put on shows like regularly. He'd do like a show every day and just sort of like lived on the thing. And he's like, and that really taught him a lot about wrestling because it's like one day he's a fucking Canadian Mountie, the next day he's a fucking evil lumberjack, you know, like they were just doing whatever and he's doing bullshit accents and just entertaining people, you know, and he's like, how then you apply that is all the same, whether it's deathmatch, whether it's thing or whatever, you just can move within whatever realm that you need to. Just so happens that deathmatch is the shit he likes the best.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think Brian Danielson is an example of somebody who said that the camp show circuit over here was like the best place to be if you wanted to learn to be a professional wrestler.
Sure.
Because you can be doing 2 shows a day in front of a crowd that doesn't know anything about wrestling, and you've got to sell them that thing right then and there.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So you learn quickly the tricks of the trade doing that kind of thing, and that's what I feel like the reason that this scene has got big quick, even with quite a small pool of talent, is because people recognize that there's some legitimate skill behind the chaos, behind all the, it is controlled chaos.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a couple of things here. Rewind back, you're training, you're doing all that, you're like, I want to get on shows, or I want to, you know, just be a wrestler, and you're working really hard and you're getting back from your bus injury and all that kind of stuff. How quickly did you then find a death match? Like, because it's obviously something that you were open to. How did it come across your door where you had the opportunity to do one? Like, were you in a rivalry and you went, maybe we should fucking do a bit of hardcore or something, or did somebody come to you?
I tried basically for every small company that I was in the Midlands area, which is where I am, and right in the centre of the country. Whenever I was put on any kind of family shows or anything like that, I was always saying, can I have street fights? Can I have no DQ matches? Just to practice. But there was no hardcore scene in the Midlands at all.
Sure.
The only company we had that was doing hardcore stuff was Rise. And they're quite out of the way for me. And I didn't know anybody on those shows. And a lot of time with wrestling, it's about who you know, what contacts you've got in each company. And if I haven't got anybody to put in a good word for me in that company, then the chances of me sending in a tape and getting there is incredibly slight.
Sure.
Especially because I'm not getting deathmatch experience anywhere else. So I'm kind of an untested commodity, right?
Sure.
So for 7 years of my career, it was just family shows. And I was trying to do as much hardcore wrestling as I could so that I'd understand how to plan, how to structure, how to use weapons, teach myself, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there was a period where I thought that Rise was going to be the only place forever and I would never get the chance to do this. And I'd sent off emails and they never got responded to. And I thought, okay, so my lot is, I know these guys, they're doing well. I can stay wrestling and I, do occasional gimmick matches and whatever.
Yeah.
And then lockdown happened. And globally, everybody experienced that shit. We all know what bullshit that was.
I know for you guys, it was really, really brutal. I'm in the most isolated city in the world and it's still shut down here, which was crazy to me. I'm like, this is how serious it is, because if it can get here, it can fucking get anywhere, And then I have friends who were like living in London when this happened, and it was really fucking serious shit for you guys, right? Like it was, like
you guys are quite spaced out, right? You got lots of space around. Yeah. Same in America for lots of places. Well, over here, everybody lives right on top of each other for the most part. Like a lot of our places are like council towns, so places where the government will put people in as many houses as they can. So it's like a big, huge Legoland set of people a lot of the time. So it passed like fucking wildfire over here. Yeah. And it meant that wrestling shows and anything like that was immediately shut down. That's not happening. Yeah. Right. contact and sweat and people all in the tight room.
Yeah.
That's not happening. So that ended up being a bit of a gift and a curse, right? It massively fucked with my mental health.
Yeah.
She did huge. I realized during that period that I had ADHD because, like, I didn't have an outlet anymore.
Yeah.
And I went absolutely bonkers, you know? So I eventually got diagnosed with ADHD because of lockdown and because I didn't have wrestling, essentially.
Yeah.
When I came out of it, what had happened was ICW No Holds Barred and GCW had continued to run shows. Yeah, I noticed that earlier. We're in the hoodie. They'd continued to run shows in America in like the towns that WWE had said, this is we need this as essential business.
Yeah.
So they found a little loophole to keep.
And they were running like
going.
outdoor shows and stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So that was all the world had was
Volume 2 of ICW No Holds Barred was like I had been getting into deathmatch wrestling and things like that. But when I saw that show, that outdoor show, fucking in that parking lot, fucking Casanova Valentine, fucking Akira coming off the roof, all that shit, I was like 100% fucking behind it. Like, you know, I would then fucking obviously go on to interview like a lot of those people and become friends with a lot of the people behind it and stuff like that because they're so accessible. But that company and GCW and everything running during that time, it was a huge focus. They carried wrestling on their back during COVID.
And just like you, it changed, not necessarily changed people's minds because they might have already liked it, but what it did was it put people onto it, right? Yeah. Because it was like World of Sport back in the day. There was only 4 channels. What you're going to watch, possibly the wrestling.
Yeah.
When you've got nothing going on and IWTV's running a live wrestling show, you're going to tune in because you sat around doing nothing. You're going to grab a beer and you're going to put the show on. So when we came out of lockdown in this country, suddenly everybody's attitude to deathmatch had completely fucking changed.
Yeah, sure.
And
it was what was hot. It was the only thing that was happening. So
yeah. And the guy called Matt, who had used to go down to Rise occasionally and got on a few of their shows as a ring announcer and stuff, thought I could do a wrestling company in the Midlands. And much like Andy, it was because I wouldn't have to travel around. It'd be right on my doorstep. And I know the people that are doing it because I used to do announcing.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that a long time ago, he had managed me in a few matches in the Midlands. And this is how all the deathmatch wrestlers got to know each other, is through all the little shows that nobody would have known about, that we all do all over the place, that are forgotten by everybody except for us because we've made a few connections along the way.
Yeah.
So when Matt decided to start opening up a company with his friend Fletch, I was one of the names that popped up because they knew that I wanted to do hardcore wrestling.
Yeah.
And they said, would you like to be in a death match after we come out of lockdown? And I said, fuck yes, put me in any fucking death match you want as quickly as humanly possible. That's as quick as it happened. What happened was we came out of lockdown, the world had changed, and death match was immediately a thing in this country.
Yeah, that's amazing. Worked out for you, so you're straight into it.
I wasn't the option anymore, and I was able to start building a reputation.
And what company was that? What was? Oh, it was Kumite.
That was Kumite.
Sure.
That's where, like, Andy would have seen me the most.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of like my home deathmatch promotion.
Yeah, he's a big fan of that promotion and a big fan of Rise, and those were the shows where he was like, "Fucking, I go and travel. I go catch Kumite here. Or I go do this here." And then he fucking was, got sick of traveling and stuff like that. I think my bud, did my bud Callan Butcher come and wrestle for Kumite at some point when he was in the UK?
Did, yeah,
absolutely.
Callan Butcher came through and wrestled Clint
at Kumite, yeah, exactly. Fuck, I miss Callan. He ended up retiring from death matches and stuff. Such a sweet fucking dude, man, and so talented as well. Like, he was lovely. He just had like, I mean, I don't know the full story of how it ended because he sort of like walked out of wrestling pretty abruptly, but like a few things sort of went wrong on like the business side and stuff. But there was a time where he was poised, especially before he was going to go to King of the Death Matches and things like that. That obviously will end up getting cancelled. Where he was on the verge of being one of like the hottest new deathmatch wrestlers in the world, I would say.
Yeah.
He was like right
when
there.
he came over, my thing was I definitely want to wrestle this guy in the future.
Yeah, sure.
Straight away, when you see somebody and like we could have a good match.
Yeah,
that's how I felt about
yeah,
that.
exactly.
I was like,
and I mean, never
really
say never. You know what I mean? But yeah, he was a special talent, and and that's where I first heard of Kumite. But then that obviously led to Andy wanting to start his own company. And then did he, when he was starting to put together the show, did Andy just message you? Was he like, hey, you keen? Like, had you guys already met before, or how'd that come about?
Andy, as you know, Andy came to the Kumite shows. He wasn't shy about talking to people, and
Of course not.
I think we would have had a chat over a beer at first, and he would have mentioned that he had the podcast, and then I went home and watched a couple of his episodes.
Sure.
I really fucking liked it, but like I genuinely really enjoyed his content because it covered a lot of deathmatch, and I've got a shoot job and a lot of bookings, so I don't have time to watch as much wrestling as I'd like because I'm doing it a lot, or I'm at work, like so. Andy was like a 2-hour clip into what was going on.
Well, he would just, for anybody that hasn't seen it, he would just sort of break down like the week in deathmatch wrestling, or like a couple of weeks in deathmatch wrestling, all the shows that had happened, and talk about it. And it was the kind of show where it's just him sitting there with a fucking bottle of whiskey or whatever, talking about it.
Yeah.
So even while you're like doing stuff, you can just listen to him. You know what I mean? Like you can fucking have it playing.
He's got a kind of innate grumpy charisma, hasn't he? Where it's quite interesting to listen
swearing
to.
away as he just fucking drunkenly fucking goes through the stuff that he's had. But yeah, I would do the same. Put him on and I'm like washing the dishes and fucking, and doing the washing and shit like that. And he's just grumbling on in the background about the shit he likes. It's fun,
So straight away I'm thinking, well, this is a like-minded guy. I like his content. He likes my wrestling. And we started talking through that. Because, again, it's about making contacts, making friends. The more people you got around you that you get on with, the better it is for the scene.
Sure.
And so it's proven, because our friendship and the fact that he rates me and I rate him meant that when he came to me saying, I'm going to start a promotion, I was like, okay, what do you want to do? Like, there was very little. I think I was one of the first guys he came to as well, because like he had a vision for what he wanted me to do at Bleeding Gums straight away. Like, he'd never seen me wrestle as a heel, but I think he knew that he wanted a big heel in the company, and I think he wanted that to be me. So it took very little conversation for me to agree to Bleeding Gums. It was like, do you want to do a show for me? Yeah, go on.
Sure.
When we're doing it.
Yeah. He's actually really impressed me as well with his booking and his foresight in that, what he wants to do as far as like angles and things like that. We've talked some booking stuff and shot things back and forwards a few times and things like that. And he's got like a pretty focused vision. You know what I mean? Like, he knows what he wants to do. He knows the stories he wants to tell and things like that. It really impressed me.
With Andy. He very much knows what he likes. He knows what he doesn't like in wrestling. He knows what he loves in wrestling. And he's basically making a show based on what he would love to see as a fan.
Yeah, he's just making it for himself.
Because he's so connected with the people around him in the fandom, then a lot of those people want to see similar things, and it just works really well. Plus, he listens to, like, obviously he's friends with me, he's friends with Joe, he talks a lot with Caden and Darko. Like, he's talking to people that have been doing this a long time, and he's always listening and taking advice and shifting things slightly. Just, a very, very intelligent booker, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And like, because he's new to it, and because he is like such a genuine fan, he's not, there's no ego in the way or anything like that. Like, he genuinely just wants to do a good job and is like kind of open to everything. And like, when we've bounced things around together and talked about stuff, like, he's really open to everything. Like, yeah, I think he's going to do really well. He's going to hate this fucking episode. We've put him over so much. He's going to be pissed off. So let's as we start to wrap up a bit here, let's talk about the show that's coming up. I do like to do this as evergreen content, but I think it's really important because we had the first show, then he's a fucking madman and he does like a title tournament as his second show. But it's really, since the first show, it's been building up to Wire and Ice. The main kind of rivalry and everything has been between you and Jack Harrop, and your guys' animosity against each other, and then leading to this no-rope barbed wire. Now, will this be the first no rope barbed wire you've ever had the opportunity to be a part of?
Yes.
Yeah, and has it been a bug? Every fucking deathmatch wrestler I talk to, it's like, this is the bucket list match that I want to do. I want an opportunity to do a no rope barbed wire, right? So you must be excited.
I'm totally stoked for it. I'm a little bit nervous. Like,
of course.
Not gonna lie, it's one
scary.
of those.
It is.
With the stipulation that you're walking into, that it's not going to be an easy night. But goddamn, like, if you'd have told little me that I'd be doing a no rope barbed wire death match like that, when I saw Foley and those tapes back in the Jim Ross interview, I'd have bitten your fucking hand off for it. So I'm stoked. Yeah, I'm well happy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be crazy, man. Like, I love, we talked about the shirt or whatever. I love that Andy sort of brought back the gimmick match shirt where it's sort of like just for that kind of thing. Like, and it's fucking so dope.
And it's great as our design as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think it's one
awesome.
of his best. I might be biased, but I really do.
I love it. I love it. I got to get him to send me one. It was funny because I helped arrange. I'm friends with Sayers-Hour. I've met him in person and I've interviewed him on the show. His only English interview, by the way. Check it out. He designed the Dude Where's My Ring shirt. Like, I sort of made that happen, right? And then Andy was getting that done. And I was like, dude, I got to show you something. You can't tell anybody yet because it's not out, but this is the fucking design. He's like, well, let me show you that he also had, like, we both had secret Sayers-Hour designs on the go behind each other's back. And we both got them back around the same time. It was so funny us fucking revealing them to each other. But yeah, it's fucking so cool, man. And I think the buzz around this match and stuff, like, I love that Andy also, like, he knows he's building his own company, and so, like, he's building his own stars too, in a way. You know what I mean? He kind of, like, picked the guys that he wanted to focus on, and, like, it's not around a title. It's about your guys' personality and your animosity and things like that. I feel like some other bookers maybe would have been like, it has to be for the title and it has to be this and that, but he's really, like, leaning in on what you guys do best. And I think it's going to be really fucking cool, man. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, like, I did an interview recently, I think I mentioned it earlier, with the Scottish Wrestling Network, where I kind of kayfabed it and cut a bit of a promo on Jack. I'm not gonna do that on this show because it's kind of been a different kind of talk, right?
Sure.
Like, what I'm gonna say is, in terms of Jack Bennett, I think the reason this has worked so well so far is because I've been a pure shitbag heel. Like, in the first match, I started off a little bit shades of grey. By the end, I'm being a twat, right? And then in the second show, I am a cunt again, right? Even worse this time.
Yeah.
Whereas Jack he's got, like, he's a classic blue eye. He's got the baby face.
He's killing it, isn't he? He's like, when he's fucking coming from out the back and shit. Yeah. He's doing it so well. Yeah.
The promo he cut after the match was fucking perfect. I was so happy with his delivery, right?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't need to be anywhere near that for that to pop off in that room.
Yeah.
So I rate Jack Harrop. I think he's going to be one of the next big things in British wrestling, in British deathmatch wrestling. Like, I can see him in 5 years' time being all over the world, doing his dad proud. I'm not gonna bullshit and lie on this podcast. That's how it is. Jack Harrop has had some of the best death matches I've seen, and he's only been doing this for a couple of years.
Yeah,
the first death match he had with his dad, Iceman, was a thing of beauty, a fucking work of art as a match.
Sure.
Right? And I'm not exaggerating. I genuinely think it's one of the top 5 best death matches I've ever seen. Yeah. So to work with Jack and to, do the bits with Iceman where I'm calling him out and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Like, it's amazing to me. I have a fucking dream come true. Yeah. I was watching Iceman wrestle Sandman and Steve Corino when I was a lot younger. Yeah. Like, now I'm having a feud with his son. Yeah. That shit's crazy to me.
That's it. Because you were supposed to wrestle him, weren't you? And then he had to retire, unfortunately. Yeah.
I think what happened was I don't think he'll mind me saying, because he's been quite open about it. He changed his medication and he went through a really, like, down period where, like, his mental health really dipped, and you could see that he was struggling. Yeah. but he's in a much, much better place now, and he started to come back and do some matches again.
Oh, really?
And
I didn't know that. That's great.
yeah, he did a match at Rise tonight.
Oh, wow. Well, it kind of still worked for him to have to dip out and kind of, I think, in a way, sort of helped your character because it was like you retired him, like in the timing and stuff. Yeah,
it gave us an extra layer.
Yeah.
It gave us an extra layer to the story, and also it got me to. I got Franco a booking out of it, who's one of my friends from Nottingham, Franco Fate, who I had.
He was good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he really stepped up, and he's been having death matches since elsewhere now. So
great.
he's embedded in the scene a little bit now. Had some great matches with Lou Nixon.
Yeah, he's got a look on him, doesn't he? He's a fucking absolute unit, Franco Fate. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So every cloud does have a silver lining, and some good came out of it. But I was really I was sad to not get that match with Iceman because he's a man that I look up to. Like, if it hadn't been for him taking this shit seriously back in the early 2000s, then we probably wouldn't be doing this because people laughed at it in this country. People didn't see it as like real wrestling.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Iceman fought that cause even when people weren't accepting it, and he's still doing it now. And look at the scene now in this country.
Absolutely.
This is possibly the hottest scene in wrestling in this country at the moment. It's on fire. So and you've got to give a lot of that credit to Iceman for his perseverance. So to get to work with Jack and Iceman is fucking I can't I'm just thankful because this is the stuff that I would have wanted to do. If I could write my wrestling future, these kind of things would be on that list.
Oh, that's so cool to hear, man. I think as we've spoken today, it's really painted a picture of a guy who's very fucking passionate about what he does. Feels very grateful for the opportunities he's had and is really excited for what comes in the future. And I can't wait, man. I think you guys are absolutely going to tear the place down. I think Bleeding Gums has got a great future, and I think it's on the shoulders of guys like you and Jack. So, yeah, I for one can't wait. I feel fucking really privileged to get to call it. So I hope I do you guys justice, and I can't wait to see it all play out and start to see you guys get the flowers you deserve.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And hopefully we'll live up to the expectation because first ever no rope barbed wire in Scottish history is quite a,
Sure.
It means something, doesn't it? So
it does, but I think if you do it your way and you infuse it with the personality and the intensity that you guys have had, you know what I mean? You don't have to fucking remake the wheel or anything like that. It just has to be honestly you guys. And that's it. Like, you guys have already been showing that. Like, people already want to see Alton Thorne and Jack Arab fight. You know what I mean? Like, they just want to see that. And then anything else is just gravy. So it's like, take your time, do it properly. You know what I mean? Everybody will be fine. It's going to be awesome.
Well, I've been watching matches, prepping for it. I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you put your own twist on it. I'm sure you've been fucking scheming away. So I, for one, can't fucking wait to see it. Man, tell everybody where to find you on social media and everything like that.
So I don't do Facebook. Can't fucking stand Facebook.
No, we figured that out today.
I could just about abide Twitter, so that I'm Alton Thorne on Twitter at Alton Thorne. That's ALTONTHORNE, and then on Instagram I'm Alton Thorne Wrestling. I tried to do TikTok, but they don't like blood very much, so I didn't get very far on that.
You got shut down already.
Pretty much. I put up 2 videos and then they're like, nah, stop this.
Yeah, okay. Fuck, well, that's a shame. Maybe the next fucking TikTok variant, once they get shut down in America, we'll let it happen. So you see how dude, thanks so much. Thanks for taking your time. We're getting quite late over there where you are now, and it's slowly getting into the day here. So we'll call it there. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to me and Alton. I really enjoyed getting to know him. And we'll do this again in the future. How's that sound, mate?
Sounds great to me, mate. Anytime.
Awesome. That is awesome. So everybody out there, you know what to do. Rate and subscribe, listen or die. And remember, it's all about peace, love, and pro wrestling. Thanks for listening. Faces and Feels is a proud member of the Count Out Podcasting Network. It is created and hosted by me, Rafe Houston. Edited by myself and the amazing Ryan Nietzsche, And the show is available on all good podcast platforms, so please go rate and subscribe. You can follow the show everywhere on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc. at Faces Feels Cast. And you can check out the Count Out Network and all our sister shows over there at Count Out Pod. If you'd like to book me for commentary, have an interview request, a topic suggestion, or you just want to say hi, you can email us at facesandfeels@gmail.com. With all that said, thanks for listening, and please support our friends and sponsors. Peace.
My body is a roadmap of pain.
DeathmatchWorldwide.com, the official online merchandise store that is only for deathmatch wrestling. Featuring official t-shirts from No Peace Underground, John Wayne Murdoch, Akira, Madman Pondo, Zona 23, Neil Diamond Cutter, G Raver, Schlack, Necro Butcher, and many more. If you are a deathmatch wrestling promotion, manager, or platform and are interested in joining the web store, send us an email to deathmatchworldwide@yahoo.com. Deathmatchworldwide.com for the violent feud.
This has been a Count Out Podcast.
Hey, have you guys heard of the new show on the Count Out Network, the Ichiban Sweetcast?
It's the brand new New Japan Pro Wrestling podcast starring the International Wrestling Grand Prix. That's me, your good friend Curtis Spears.
And me, your bad friend Rafe Hewson. And we're here to talk about everything New Japan Pro Wrestling, reacting to everything, getting worked up, getting very happy, sometimes crying. Kind of like something else we used to do, right?
Oh, yeah. That was the old Okada Shorts podcast, right?
Ah, that's right. And if you love that show, you're going to love this show because it's exactly the same show.
Yeah, we just had to change the name.
Yeah, we did. But you can check it everywhere on a social media handle that we haven't made yet.
Yeah, we're really new to this. So what you can do is search on your favorite podcast catcher of choice. Look for the Ichiban Sweetcast.
Sweetcast, Ichiban.